and welcome to While I Read. Today we'll be discussing two thrillers and a romantic comedy. So, first, let's dive into one of the thrillers, You'll Never Know I'm Here by Kiersten Modglin. You'll Never Know I'm Here is about book influencers who go on a weekend retreat together. If you've never heard of a book influencer before, it's basically a person who shares their thoughts about books with others, often on social media. So, I guess now that I have this YouTube channel, I'm a book influencer. But I feel really pretentious saying that. Right now, I'm just a wannabe book influencer. The characters in this book are real book influencers. They're from all over the United States and they only know each other online. So they book a weekend in an old house that's in a central location for all of them so that they can meet and get to know each other in person. I love books that take place in big, old, abandoned houses where characters are forced together and may or may not be who they seem to be. Since this book is about a group of people who love reading, it has a lot of really great quotes and plot points related to books. For instance, I'm going to read you one of my favorite quotes from this book. I love books. I love the way they smell, the weight of them in my hands. Books have saved my life on more than one occasion, distracted me, given me something to hold on to in the darkest points of my life. Don't you love that description? I'm going to read that last part again. Books have given me something to hold on to in the darkest points of my life. If you're a book lover, and if you're watching this show, you must be, I'm sure you know what that means. I think about times in my life when I've been worried or stressed, and books have helped me feel better. In the future, I may do a whole episode on my comfort books, books that I reread when I'm sick or feeling bad. Does reading serve as a comfort for any of you watching this channel? I bet it does. This quote really resonated with me. The characters in the book also play a game called Bookish Confessions. I don't know if it's a real game or just something made up from the book. The way the game is played is that they each write down a confession of one of their reading habits, and the others have to guess who wrote it. Doesn't that sound like a fun game to play with other people who love books? I've got to find some people to play that game with me. So I don't want to give anything important away, so I'll just read one of the bookish confessions from the book, and then I'll make my own bookish confession. So here's the confession from the book. One character says, I give up on books at any point if I've lost interest, whether that's chapter 1 or the second to last chapter. This is a pretty controversial confession in the book. Some of the other characters say if they start a book, they have to finish it, even if they hate it. Others say that makes no sense. Why waste your time on a book that you don't even like? I am on the side of giving up, but I usually wouldn't do it in the second to last chapter. If I've made it that far, I finish. However, if I don't like a book after the first 2 or 3 chapters, I'll quit. Or if there's some kind of plot point that I don't like, I will stop reading the book. What about you? Do you always finish a book that you start, or do you quit if you don't like it? Okay, so now I'm going to make my own bookish confession, and I'm really nervous about it. Here it is. Sometimes I read the ending of a book before I start the book. If I don't like the end, I don't read the book. Do you hate me now? Some people are really disturbed by the fact that I do this. Actually, I don't do this as often now as I used to. I read almost all of my books on Kindle now, and for some reason, I'm less likely to look at the end when I'm reading the book on Kindle. A lot of people think that knowing the end ruins the book. I've never felt that way because I can enjoy a book even if I know the ending. I'm reading for the characters, the description, the scenes that I like. And knowing these things in advance doesn't ruin a book for me. It actually gives me something to look forward to. Knowing the ending in advance doesn't ruin it for me either. But enough rationalizing. Do you think I'm a monster now? Do any of you read the ending of books before you start them? I hope knowing this about me hasn't made you not want to watch my YouTube channel anymore. Like I said, I really liked the Bookish Confessions game and all the parts of You'll Never Know I'm Here that dealt with the characters' feelings about reading. I liked the exploration of these people who feel like they know each other because they know each other online, but really they may not know everything about each other. I'm also a sucker for the plot device that they are all in this big old house in an isolated location. However, there were some things that I didn't like about this book. One thing was that for a thriller, not a lot of thrilling events actually happened until the very end. They're in the house, some of the townspeople seem kind of strange, a few scary things happen, but the characters don't seem to be in any real danger. At the end of the book, a lot happens in a very short amount of time. And the end feels very contrived and out of nowhere to me. It's hard to say much without spoiling the book, and you may not be like me and like to know the ending. So I'll just say that the bad guys and their motives were pretty unbelievable. It also got a little preachy. You'll Never Know I'm Here was an exciting read, and it kept me interested throughout. I loved the quotes related to reading. However, I don't think it's a book that will stay with me and keep me pondering it for very long. I'd recommend it if you want a quick read that you don't have to think about very much. Next up, thriller number 2, The Weekend Retreat by Tara Laskowski. I love this book's premise and setting. It focuses on a rich family, the Van Ness family, who are visiting their beautiful winery property for a weekend birthday celebration. While the Van Nesses are fabulously wealthy and the property is vast and beautiful, they have their secrets. And what's supposed to be a relaxing weekend retreat turns deadly. Chapters alternate narrators among 3 women, Harper, Elle, and Lauren. Harper is the beautiful, mean Van Ness daughter. Elle is married to Harper's twin brother, and Lauren is dating the youngest Van Ness sibling. We also have a few chapters from the point of view of someone known as the party guest. We don't know anything about this person other than that he or she has evil plans for the Van Ness family. I loved the book's descriptions of the property, how it's beautiful and lush, but can also be dangerous with thick, dark woods and powerful waterfalls. As I mentioned earlier with You'll Never Know I'm Here, I'm a sucker for these books that are set in a beautiful, isolated location. The Van Ness siblings are impossibly wealthy, and they seem to lead charmed lives, but we of course find out that they have their secrets and problems. Lauren, who is dating the youngest Van Ness sibling, is from a middle class family in a small town, and she seems like a naive small town girl trying to figure things out. But it's obvious from the beginning that she is not as innocent as she seems. Harper Van Ness is sophisticated, but also the quintessential mean girl. And there are a few scenes where Lauren stands up to her that are pretty satisfying. The book is sprinkled with news articles and blog posts about the Van Ness siblings, and we know from the very beginning that at least one Van Ness sibling will die. I've read books before that have this plot device where we know that a character or characters will die, but we just don't know which one. And in the best books, I find myself hoping, oh, not this character. Oh, don't let her die. And that feeling makes me much more anxious to finish the book and find out if the characters I love survive. But as I got to the halfway point in the weekend retreat, I found that there was really no character that I loved or that I felt a connection to. I was curious to find out what happened, but I wasn't really rooting for any of the characters. Part of it is that a lot of them are pretty awful people who we're not meant to sympathize with. But part of it is that the characters don't really seem that real. They're more representatives of a type. Harper is the rich, mean girl with a secret. Lauren is the small town girl with a secret. Elle is the wife who's trying to fit in, but guess what? She also has a secret. None of them seem like real people to me. So while this book was a quick read and I enjoyed it, it would have been better if the characters were more fully developed. Overall, I enjoyed the weekend retreat because of its setting and atmosphere. However, the characters could have been more sympathetic and real. I did read it fairly quickly, and I was anxious to get to the end. So again, like You'll Never Know I'm Here, I'd recommend the weekend retreat if you want a quick, enjoyable read. Finally, let's talk about the romantic comedy, Raiders of the Lost Heart by Joe Segura. I learned about this book through an interview with the author on the Writer's Block podcast, and I thought it sounded great. The author described it as a mixture of Raiders of the Lost Ark and Romancing the Stone. I love those two movies, and I had really high hopes for this book. Unfortunately, while I didn't hate it, it didn't live up to my expectations. So, brief summary. This book is about two archaeologists, Dr. Corey Mejia and Dr. Ford Matthews, who are forced to work together on a dig in a Mexican jungle to try to find the remains of an Aztec warrior. Corey and Ford have a rocky history, and sparks fly as they begin their expedition and have all kinds of adventures together. Let's talk about what I liked about the book first. I liked the setting of the Mexican jungle. There are lots of parts that describe them rafting down a river, swimming in a crystal blue pool beneath a waterfall. I like the camaraderie of the characters in this story. Their descriptions of the characters sitting around a campfire, talking and laughing together. They sleep in tents. So those were some of the things that I liked about the book. Now let's talk about what I disliked about the book. The main thing that I disliked was that the book had an enemies to lovers trope that I just didn't enjoy. I know that this is a very popular trope in romance novels, the two people who hate each other but just can't help falling in love. I've read books that feature enemies to lovers that I enjoy, but this one just didn't work for me. If you like the enemies to lovers trope, you'll probably like this book better than I did. Another thing that I disliked about the book is that I just found the main characters to be too attractive. Ford is described as being just muscular enough. It's obvious that he visits the gym, but not too much. He's just too perfect looking. Corey is described as a beautiful, sexy woman who isn't taken seriously in her field because she's just so beautiful and sexy. I'm not trying to minimize sexism, but this trope is just not one that I particularly like. I tend to like the nerdy heroes, for women especially. The one who maybe doesn't get noticed by guys that much, but to the hero, she's perfect. Again, that is a personal preference. Others might like this trope. It's just not my favorite. You can decide if you want to read about two perfect looking people. I just didn't like either of the main characters enough. Corey was just too attractive, and she also seemed to have too much of a magical connection to archaeology. Ford was also too attractive, and he did some pretty awful things that I found it hard to forgive him for. So, some mild spoilers, things that you find out pretty early in the book. Ford is the lead archaeologist on the dig, even though Corey is the acknowledged expert on the warrior that they're trying to find. That's a pretty major plot point, and the way it's explained makes Ford look pretty bad. And in my opinion, he's never really redeemed. Overall, I liked the setting and the adventure, but I didn't like the characters or the overused tropes. I think I actually just don't really like romance novels that much. I'm more of a mystery thriller person. If you do like romance novels, you'll probably like Raiders of the Lost Heart. So that's it for today's episode about two thrillers and a romantic comedy. I hope you might be interested in reading some of these books. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to my channel. Happy reading! Now, go do your homework while I read.